Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Strategic Veteran. I'm your host, Adam Peters, and today's guest brings a story that spans battlefields to boardrooms, parades to programming boot camps, and everything in between. Imagine leading hundreds of Marines in a combat zone, then walking the floors of the New York Stock Exchange, and eventually finding your passion helping others break into tech. That's the remarkable path of Lieutenant Colonel John Tansill, a Marine Corps veteran whose journey reminds us just how many chapters one life can hold. Man, that's so true. John served 28 years, 10 on active duty and 18 in the reserves, rising through the ranks of the Marine Corps with grit, humility, and a deep sense of mission. Early in his career, he was surrounded by prior enlisted peers in the Marine Enlisted Commissioning Education Program. If that's not a mouthful, I don't know what is. Seasoned NCOs and senior NCOs who've helped shape his leadership philosophy. That blend of mentorship and mutual respect stayed with him, especially during his time commanding Marines overseas. After hanging up the uniform, John forged a new path, first in the fast-paced world of Wall Street, then as an entrepreneur, and now as the Director of Veterans Affairs at Skillstorm, where he helps veterans, transitioning service members, and military spouses accelerate into careers in IT. Whether it's helping others navigate the fog of transition or reminding them that their current next chapter doesn't have a start with a 4-year degree, John brings wisdom rooted in experience. So get ready for an honest and impactful conversation about what it really means to take on your post-service mission. John, welcome to the show, man. It's an honor to have you here.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, brother. Let's get started, man. First question for everybody. Where did you grow up and what inspired you to become a Marine?
Sure. Grew up in northern New Jersey, right outside of New York City, and was actually born in Kansas City. And then my dad got transferred to Chicago, and from Chicago to New York. So he was educated in New Jersey, and then grew up there also. And what really enamored me with joining the military was, and it's not a funny story, but our family are original Virginians, got here in the late 1600s. And so we fought in the American Revolution, and my grandfather fought in World War One. My dad was in World War Two. So kind of a military type background. My great grandfather fought in both battles of Manassas in the Civil War. So it maybe it's in the blood. I don't know, Adam. But anyway, so I was graduating from high school, and it was a private high school run by Benedictine monks in Morristown, New Jersey, called Del Barton. And I actually stopped by the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and my father saw the Marine Corps recruiting flyers on the kitchen table, and he goes, "Your grandfather just didn't pay all this money for you to go to this high school, with the Benedictine monks, beating your ass to make sure that you're getting educated, and then, for you to join the Marine Corps." So anyway, I ended up going to school, going to college, small Catholic school here in New Jersey called Seton Hall. And I played basketball for him. I was a walk-on. For those
I don't
that
think Seton Hall is that small of a school. It's pretty well
well,
known.
yeah, I guess not.
Come
But
on
anyway,
now.
if any of your audience watches hoops, my coach was Bill Raftery, the
Nice.
gentleman who does the color commentating on for the Final Four and all that. But anyway, I guess I was a second semester sophomore, and had a couple of buddies that were going into the Marine Corps commissioning program. And so anyway, I was talking to them. They introduced me to the Marine Corps recruiter, who they call it OSO, right? An officer selection officer. And anyway, met with him, and one thing led to another. And I go, "Hey, well, this is the opportunity I had to pass up, 3 years ago." So one thing led to another, and I went to OCS 2 summers in a row. The Marine Corps calls it the platoon leaders class, but it's OCS. So when I graduated from Seton Hall, I was a December grad, and 2 weeks later, I was a lieutenant down at the basic school in Quantico. And it was there, Adam, that I was, I had only been in the Marine Corps for 2 weeks, and I was lucky enough that I got put into, and it was just dumb luck. I got put into a MECEP class, which is a class that was majority, I'd say 95% of the individuals were prior enlisted, and they were so good. They were, as we would say, water walkers, every one of them, that the Marine Corps saw, like they pinpointed how good they were, and they sent them to school. And they got to keep their rank. They got promoted while they were going to college, and then they got commissioned. Well, here I am, don't know a lot, but all my classmates were corporals and sergeants, some staff sergeants. Believe it or not, I think we had 2 or 3 gunnery sergeants, E7s that were in. So, I mean, it was like the perfect environment for me. Maybe not for them, but it was a perfect environment for me because not only was I learning in the classroom, but I was learning in the chow hall from these guys. I was learning
Yeah.
in, going to PT with them on Saturday and Sunday. Just walking around with them, chatting, and so it was a phenomenal environment for me. I mean, it's
How
funny too because a lot of people that go to the basic school, if you talk to other Marine officers, they say, "Oh, it stunk. It was awful. I hated it." I was just the opposite. I just absolutely loved it
yeah, yeah, I
because
mean,
of all
I
the
feel
experiences they shared with me.
I feel like that taught you a lot about humility, but also gave you a bunch to leverage when you got to your first duty station or your first assignment as a young lieutenant. You have all this enlisted experience that you've drawn from while you're at you call it MECEP, is that what you call it?
Yeah, we call it TBS, the basic school.
Okay.
So everybody learns the basics, no matter what MOS you're going to be, whether you're going to be a pilot, a supply officer, an artillery officer, an infantry officer. Everybody learns the same thing, so they know what it's like to be a grunt.
Yeah, the whole every Marine's a rifleman thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. What did that teach you? And I'm sure you carried a lot of what you learned from those enlisted guys through your whole career. I saw it when I was in the Army, man. Most guilty are the service academy guys, the West Point guys coming out. They're just hot to trot lieutenants. I know everything. I got a college degree. I don't have to
Sure.
listen to you. And I'm thinking, man, I'm an E6 platoon sergeant with 4 fucking deployments. What do you know? You know
Right.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
did you pick up on that while you were at TBS learning from these guys? Like, hey,
Oh
they
yeah. Yeah.
they have
Absolutely. Yeah.
valuable information.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the other is that not only that, but the 2 individuals that led the company I was in. Uh, I still remember the gentleman's name. He was a captain at the time. He ended up retiring as lieutenant colonel. His name was Leon Craig, and he was an African American officer, prior enlisted gunny. Was to 2 or 3 tours in Vietnam, and then his XO was a prior enlisted force recon Marine who became an A6 right seater on the A6 intruder. And so not only were my classmates prior enlisted, but even the gentlemen that were leading the company were prior enlisted. The amount I learned, I mean, you couldn't even measure it. I was just like a sponge. And the thing was that they would warn you, like, hey, staff NCOs run the Marine Corps, as far as the minute to minute stuff, um, you know, and um, and then so learn as much as you can from your platoon sergeant and your other individuals in your company, your first sergeant, your company gunny, and take it to heart. It's like, yeah, no, and I'm not saying that infantry officers course, which I went to after that, wasn't a phenomenal uh, preparatory phase. It was, but there's just the minutia of dealing with the troops, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with tactics. It's just got to do with leadership, so the IOC prepares you for all the tactical portion. Then there's the leadership portion,
Yeah.
and I think that one of the things that those guys really instilled in me, all those prior enlisted Marines that I was with as lieutenant, was the fact that, and it almost goes back to General Lejeune back in the turn of the century when he wrote a letter regarding the Marine Corps birthday, and he said the officer enlisted um, relationship is not to uh, subordinate to superior. It is more to teacher and student, to the fact, he says, I will even go even further. It could be even looked at as father to son.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's that type of relationship that I took to heart that I had. Now, believe me, this stuff happens. It's not like you're not disciplined and you're going to listen and learn and believe everything that Lance Corporal Schmatz is telling you. That's not the case. It's just you're thinking about both sides of the equation. You're thinking, well, how does it feel to be him, and then and how does it feel to be you? But still, the mission is the most important, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
think that's I don't know. I think that's why I think I had a great relationship with with the Marines that I had under me.
Well, I think it's important, man, because an officer who understands that relationship, man, with a good platoon sergeant or just good other enlisted leaders, man, the limits of what you can do in that unit are just they're
Yeah,
unparalleled, right? When you get along like that.
right. And I think too, Adam, is that I, I'm not bragging, but I think I have a decent sense of humor, and if if you're able to bring a bit of sense of humor to whatever it is, you could be in a shit sandwich and you can still do something that makes people laugh, right? And or say something, I should say something that makes people laugh, and I think that they appreciated the fact that yeah, everything is very serious, but that doesn't mean that at a lot of times it can't be fun also.
Mhm. What did you always want to be an infantry officer, or did you get forced into that? How does that work?
Well, believe it or not, I actually went to flight school, and I was one of those individuals that I kept getting airsick, and so they like the flight surgeons tested me, and they said we could try to you know send you down to this program where they basically make you throw up till you're not throwing up anymore. It's almost like what NASA does, right? They put
Yeah,
you in a chair and they spin you around
yeah,
forever, and finally you get desensitized to it. And the flight surgeons were like, "Your equilibrium in your ears is so sensitive, it's never going to work." And
yeah.
so I was like, okay, so I'm standing in front of a lieutenant colonel in Pensacola, Florida, and he says, all right, he says, well, what do you want to do now? I said, there's only two things to do to me as a Marine Corps officer is either be a pilot or be an infantry officer.
Nice.
And he looked up at me and he goes like, you're one of the first one of the first people who's ever said that, because a lot of them like they want to go into aviation maintenance or something like that, something that's. But I was like, nah, the Marine Corps is built for that.
Right.
I'm not. If I wanted to do aviation maintenance, I would have gone to Delta or something and gotten know, or if I wanted to be motor T, I would have gone to I would have gone graduated from college and gone to work for Ryder Trucking. You know,
Yeah. Right.
so here's this opportunity in front of me, and so off I went to infantry officers course. So back up to Quantico for the infantry officers course, and then was lucky enough that because I don't even remember actually filling out a dream sheet or anything, but I ended up at Fifth Marines out in uh, Camp Pendleton, California, Camp Margarita, which overlooks the airfield.
Yeah. So yeah, a stark reminder of, hey, I could have been that. Instead, I'm
Yeah,
over
right.
here.
Yeah, exactly. Every morning when I'm driving in, yeah.
I mean, dude, I went to flight school when I got out of the army, and so I have a commercial license and all of
Oh,
that.
great.
I just got fed up with like what it takes to actually get to doing that for a really good living, and just
Yeah,
decided, I'm going to go make my own way. I'll buy my own plane and fly for myself. But I do drive by, the flight school that I was at here and see, all my friends that I met in flight school. They're out talking, posting pictures of being traveling or whatever, and sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I was kind of doing that, but I'm way happier doing what I'm doing now. You know what I mean? So it's
oh,
like
sure. Yeah,
it's that dichotomy, that reminder of like that could have been your life. However, the path that you're on is a little bit better, I
yeah.
think. And so you did 10 years active duty. What was the decision to get off of active duty and go do your last 18 years in the reserves?
Well, actually, I did 5 years of active duty, um, and then joined the reserves, um, and got activated 3 different times. or
Okay, so
mobilized,
that
whatever you
so
want to
that's
call it.
that's where the 10 years of active
Yeah,
duty
that's where the
comes in.
10, when you add it all up. So I did another 5 years of active duty. My last active duty, Adam, was 2009 and 10. God, that was a long time ago. It doesn't seem
Yes,
like it. It seems like it was yesterday. And I was in the Horn of Africa. So
John,
I
I'll tell
spent a
you,
year.
my last deployment was in 2012 to Afghanistan, and I'm sitting here thinking, like, man, it's been 13 years.
Yeah,
It's
I know.
crazy.
Yeah, when you go like, wait a minute, today it's 2025, and it doesn't seem like that. And it's like the one thing about me is that because of what I do for a living at Skillstorm, I travel a lot. Like Wednesday morning, I'm flying to Augusta, Georgia, uh, to go to Fort Eisenhower, formerly Fort Gordon, where the Army Cyber School is, to do a job fair there with hiring our heroes. And the thing is that I go to military bases a lot,
Yeah.
so I've got this connection that, and by the way, I if I can a lot, sometimes I can't, but 80% of the time I stay on the base. I stay in the IHG now runs like the Army BOQ BEQ, right? And so IHG but is like Holiday Inn Company, and so anyway, I stay on base, and I'm a bit of a gym rat because I love the PT in the morning, and so I just use the base gym,
Yeah.
because I have my retired military ID card, and so yeah, even if I can, yeah, it's I think Skillstorm, the accounting office, kind of laughs when they see my expense report because it's not like some fancy steakhouse. It's like Popeyes at the food court at the PX.
You're still living that life
Yeah,
on base,
exactly.
man.
That's right.
You,
So
it's interesting that you're talking about being a gym rat. Memorial Day was last week, and my buddy, he got out. One of the guys that mentored me, a big mentor for me. That's a whole complicated history. Anyway, we're still in touch. We talk regularly. We help each other through the struggles. And he just moved back up to Washington. And so, for the first Memorial Day in 10 years, he went to the Rock, which is our battalion's memorial for all the guys we lost and all the deployments we were on. And he got up there and he said something to me. He's like, man, we should have taken better advantage of the gym zone post. And I was like, what are you talking about, man? He's like, dude, I walked in there to go get a workout in because, fitness is a big part of the healing journey when you get out. And I'm sure we'll
sure.
get to that and all of
Yep.
that. But he's like, dude, there is not a piece of equipment in there. There's pieces of equipment in there that I've never even seen before. It's like we had ample opportunity to be in the best shapes of our lives and we never took advantage of it. And so I love that you're actually living that life
Yeah.
still now, like
Yep.
it's
Yeah. In fact,
really cool.
I walk through the gym every weekday morning at 05. I wake up at 04, and I'm going to the gym in Newark. Well, right on the edge of Newark. At 05 in the morning, I'm in there.
Yeah. Let's talk about your transition, man, because you did 5 years active duty and then you were activated a bunch, and TAP never existed when you got out. I know that to be fact because TAP didn't come around until 2011.
Right.
And in 2014, it was revamped. And oh, by the way, it's still a colossal failure, which is why I have a podcast and brand now.
Yeah. Right.
Go figure. But let's talk about what did your transition actually look like and what did you struggle with? Because the whole point of this is to create content, conversations with other veterans who have walked a mile in your shoes, the listener, right? And I started all of this because when I hit rock bottom, and I got over that through ayahuasca and kind of the plant medicine retreat and all of that, I realized that like I could have used a platform or something like this, a podcast, some kind of something to just prove to me that I wasn't alone in the thoughts and the feelings that I was having and just being lost after getting out. After giving 13 years of my life to the Army, 4 deployments, 5 years of combat time, blah, blah, blah. You know how all that goes. You're not a stranger to that. So what did you struggle with and what did you find to be the most challenging, particularly going from being a Marine Corps officer, leading troops into combat? I assume, you had a long career. I mean, you were
Right.
trained by guys in Vietnam, and then you got
Sure.
out,
Absolutely.
in the
Yep.
middle of the surge and GWAT. So there's a ton of experience. I have no idea what you saw. We're not here to tell war stories. If you
Right.
want to talk about some of the stuff you went through, that's great. But what was that like? Because you went to Wall Street. Like that's a stark transition, man.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that so I left Fifth Marines in April, and I didn't get fully employed until January.
See,
So, yeah, like you said, it was there was no TAP. Now, grant you, I had just finished humping a pack for 5 years or almost 5 years, and so I kind of took the summer off, which, to tell you the truth, looking back on it, was a mistake.
Okay.
I'm not to say not to kind of relax and decompress. I'm not saying that, but 3 months is that's 90 days. That's
It's a long
it
time.
was yeah, it was too long, and but anyway, so one thing led to another, and yeah, I mean, yeah, my resume says, yeah, I worked on the floor of the New York Exchange and the floor of the American Exchange, which is true. But the funny thing is, I was a clerk. I was not, I was that was because they would slap you on the back. You go, hey, you got to pay your dues, son. You got to pay your dues, and so that's how you learn. I mean, I don't teach how to work on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange at Harvard. You get the only way you learn it is you just do it.
Right.
Right. It's almost like being a good grunt, right?
Yeah.
People think that, oh, well, you went through infantry training school. Now you're good. No, you're
No,
not.
not even
No,
close.
I mean,
You don't know anything.
just to become a good point man on a rifle squad takes you a good 13 or 14 months.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You,
Yeah.
and to get, so this notion that you throw, a pack on your back and a Kevlar on, and you put on a helmet, and you're good to go. That that is absolutely not the case. It's no different than anything else. It's no different if you're trying to teach yourself ice hockey or basketball, or if you're trying to teach yourself coding. It's going to take a while to get good at it.
Well, I
Um,
think this is an interesting pain point to push on, because when I do conversations with vets who are getting ready to transition, one of the most common things I hear is like, you know, your situation. You were an officer in the United States Marine
right.
Corps. I was a senior NCO when I was getting out.
Yep.
We often don't want to take the step back and have to go pay dues in a
Yeah.
place, right? Like it's and I'm not saying that it's ego or anything like that. I think it's just part of it, right? Like, you climbed one mountain and now you have to fall back down the mountain and start climbing another mountain. And I think the thing to remember there is you have a unique advantage because of the skill set that you leave the military with, right? The high leverage leadership skills, the problem solving, the adaptability. So while it sucks to have to take that step back and go pay dues, be a peon again, be a fucking private, essentially, right? Like, that's what it is. I
Absolutely.
think we're at just an incredible advantage, and you can rocket ship up the ladder in whatever career you go to.
Yeah.
You just have to learn the systems
Right.
that are there.
You just hit the nail on the head, Adam. It's all of the things you learned in the military are going to help you climb the ladder, but it doesn't mean that you're going to start at the top of the ladder, right? You're going to start at the bottom,
Yeah.
but you're gonna. It's almost like a running race, right? You're going to pass a hell of a lot of people on the way, right?
Right.
Because they're not as good as you. But at the same token, you still have to know the baseline information, no matter what industry you're in, to be able to quickly go up that ladder. Because if you don't, I've been on employer panels before quite often, and I always tell them, I say, you know what, be ready to eat some humble pie. And the same thing is, be ready for it, and don't let it throw you for a loop either. You've
Right.
got to compartmentalize the fact that, hey, you know what? I was an Army staff NCO. I was in charge of 180 soldiers. Their well-being from 24/7, 365, no matter where we were in the world. And all of a sudden, they're telling you that, well, this is how it's done, and you're going like, it's a hard pill to swallow, right? But
It
at the
is,
same
but
token, but if you get your mind right, you're gonna go like, hey, well, here's the thing: pretend you're still in the military, right? Here you are, a platoon sergeant in the infantry, and now let's say you become a platoon sergeant in artillery,
nope,
right?
not gonna
Right.
work.
Not going to work, right?
I don't know artillery.
You're gonna have to learn, what exactly they're doing on the gun line, and what they're doing in the fire direction center before you can become a good platoon sergeant in the artillery, right? And so it's if you use that as an example, you're going from the infantry to artillery. It's no different than if you're going from the infantry to General Electric.
Well,
Or
and John, to your point, that this was an opportunity I had. I could have still been in the Army to today
right,
if I really wanted to, right? So I was offered a medical reclass, and I was like, how as an E6 promotable, and I didn't get promoted because they won't promote in the med board process or whatever, which is, fine. It doesn't, it's irrelevant, but for me, from a leadership perspective, I'm thinking, okay, so if I do this, at some point I'll make E7. And then I'm expected to be this senior enlisted, guy in this job that all of these subordinates are going to come to me and look to me for knowledge and expertise and all of this. How can I be an effective leader when for 13 years, 12 and a half, 13 years, I've been an infantry guy. I've been on 4 deployments. I know the infantry world inside and out. But you're going to send me to some soft skill MOS job because, let's be honest, I was broken and that's what my options were.
So
how am I going to be an effective leader?
Like in finance or something like that, right?
Finance, personnel, intel, even maybe, whatever. Like I would have had some pretty cool options because it was 2015 when I was getting out. So we still had a good 5 more years of war. And let's be honest, brother, we're good at warring. Like I'm really good at warring. I'm not good as a garrison soldier. And, the writing was on the wall when I was getting out. I was seeing that like you started pushing guys with combat experience out big time. I'm sure you were aware of that. And just how can you be an effective leader? And, I couldn't justify that in my mind. And so, that's just it right there. You can also reframe this for yourself when you're getting out and you're going to have to climb that ladder and start over and be a peon. It's no different. Would you take the Jeff Bezos, let's just use Bezos or one of these giant billionaires who run multiple companies or whatever. Do you think that they would be as effective running an infantry fucking battalion?
No.
They wouldn't, because they have no idea how it works.
They have no idea. That's what I say. You can take, you go to the JP Morgan and you grab somebody that's never been in the military who's a vice president, just like you said, and you say, okay, you're now the sergeant major of the battalion XO or brigade XO of this unit, or even better, the brigade CO. Right. And we're going to do a test, right? You're going to run that for 30 days, and we're going to take the battalion commander and have him go to JP Morgan. And both of you are going to be like a fish out of water.
You could be on the phone a lot with each other, right? Exactly. Like, hey, how the fuck do I do this?
Yeah.
And man, I'm so glad that you're here to talk about this, because you were a lieutenant colonel getting out and I was an E6, and that's a big discrepancy. Like duties are different, everything. But the fact is, we both have to start over when we get out. Like it doesn't matter. We all have to go back to the bottom.
I think a lot of corporations, right? They think a veteran, and I kind of joke about this. They think a veteran is, somebody who was a captain or a major who went to the Naval Academy and got a Harvard MBA. I'm going like, okay, that's like
1%,
0.15%, right? And so it really. The thing about transition is there's a bunch of programs out there via SkillBridge and via different companies. The thing is, a lot of them are built for NCOs and above. Mm-hmm. I'd say 98% of them are built for NCOs and above. Very little is built for the young non-rates, right? The Lance Corporals of the world, the E3s, who, because majority of people, not necessarily in the Army, not necessarily in the Air Force and the Navy, because their contracts are different, right? Their contracts are usually 6 to 8 years, because they're, for lack of a better term, their MOSs are a little bit more technical in theory. But in the Army and the Marine Corps, especially, the average enlistment is 4 years. Guys do 4 years and they get out. Every year, the Marine Corps turns itself over.
That's crazy.
Right? I shouldn't say that. Every 4 years, the Marine Corps turns itself over. So this year, 40,000 will leave, 40,000 will come in, right? Yeah. It's a total of just under 170,000. So in 4 years, the entire Marine Corps is brand new than it was, theoretically, than it was 4 years ago. So my point is that with that, though, there's a lot of guys that are getting out that, they didn't make NCO, not because they weren't good. It's just they weren't in long enough. Right. Or maybe they had just pinned on corporal and they're now going to ETS, as you guys call it. Of course, every service has a different acronym for that, right?
Of course.
Marine Corps is EAS, end of active service. Army and Air Force is ETS. Navy is EAOS. So
It's
anyway,
wild, man.
it
Like
is.
it's
It's like
wild.
we can't even get on the same page for that. But anyway, um, so it's just it's really a shame because they're the ones I think that get kind of overlooked
Mhm.
as far as, and then if you just wanted to go up the ladder, then it is the young NCOs that get overlooked. I mean, I'm talking about overlooked in the fact that I just think there's a lot more available to staff NCOs and to officers than there is to,
100. I mean, and we can see that playing out
yeah,
today with and this is more on kind of your side. I would say '06 and above,
yeah,
really working at the Pentagon or getting these billets, in high profile, billets or whatever. They make civilian connections with defense contractors, and then they just walk out into a multi six figure defense contracting job
right,
because of who they know, and it's like also these are the people that are making the decisions in the TAP programs, and this is my big problem with this, right? Is these senior officers, they've got it all figured out. They've got a network of people. They're walking into that defense contracting job or whatever. That's probably going to change with everything that's going on in the
yeah,
landscape now. However, they're not thinking about the down the line and how transition affects all of us. And this leads me to my next point. And you said this is something that I've harped on for going on 2 years now, is finding personal purpose post service. It's so important, right?
absolutely,
And so they found a purpose in, I'm walking into a defense contracting job, so I don't give a fuck what TAP looks like. We're just going to blanket and blanket solve this problem by saying, hey, you got a GI Bill, you should go use that. You're a veteran, everybody's going to want to hire you. You should get a six-figure job, no problem. Congratulations, you're successful. And that is not the case at all. I'm talking to veterans who have applied to 1,700 jobs since
yeah,
they've been out
yeah,
and haven't gotten shit. You know what I
right,
mean? So it's like, what do you mean everybody wants me? You're now being primed before you get out to think, oh, getting a job is going to be easy. And so the key to really avoiding that mistake is figuring out who you are as a person without the military, and then taking that and finding your purpose in line with that.
right.
And so, can you talk about how you found your purpose?
Yeah, I mean, it
Trial and
was
error.
seriously, it was
It
trial and
was,
error,
yeah.
which, by the way, I do not recommend that.
I don't either.
Um,
It's why
and
I do this, because
yeah,
I found out the
and
hard way too.
I do not recommend that at all. What I do recommend um, is research and to use a military term, like but before you do an attack, right? You recon the objective, right? To know the ins and outs of how do I get in, how do I get out, etc. You recon the objective. Well, guess what? When you're going through TAP and you're trying to decide what direction, what industry you'd like to go into, you research it. Don't be fucking lazy. Sorry, don't be lazy. Because if you finding a job is a full time job.
Yep.
It is. So if you think you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to send out 10 resumes, because to 10 things on Indeed and, the easy apply button and bink, okay, there's my ninth one, my 10th one at 09. I'm going to the gym and then I'm going to eat lunch and I'm going to go hit golf balls. And then, I'm going to come back and maybe I'll send out another 10. And then they want to know, well, how come nobody ever responds to me? Well, I remember when my children were little. One of my daughters was playing little kids town basketball, and I remember talking to one of the other fathers. He goes, "Yeah," he says, "I recruit for I think it was Raytheon," and he says, "I personally get over 1 million resumes a year."
Holy shit.
So I mean, I'm going like, so that's what you're competing against, right?
Yeah.
And so when they're getting 1 million of them, so that's when they start looking at those keywords that everybody
Yeah. The
talks about,
ATS. Yep.
and all of a sudden, like you're going like, well, no, here's a strong suggestion. This has got nothing to do with IT or Skillstorm. If you're looking for work, right, and you figured out what industry you want to be in because you've researched it, right? If you're a guy that loves being outside, you'd hate being behind a keyboard, right? you hate being behind a keyboard for 15 minutes, much less 9 hours every day. Well, then maybe a desk job is not for you. And
Right.
guess what? There are plenty of jobs out there where you're going to be outside and you can make a lot of money at it.
Yeah.
Now you can work your ass off, but my point is that you've got to research it, and then you've got to network.
Yep.
If you don't network, and I know they in the TAP class say, "Oh, you've got to network, right? And you've got to be on LinkedIn." Well, that's not going to find you a job. Networking is going to, the job fairs. It's going to, different things that are happening, different industries, right? If your industry is having a trade show, go to it.
Yep.
Right. And you go up and talk to a company and go, by the way, I'm leaving the military. I'm trying to get into this industry. What's your advice? How would you, if you were me, what would you do?
Yeah.
And you're going to get some. And by the way, the word advice, when you ask somebody for their advice, it's a buy-in word, meaning that it really grabs somebody,
It makes
really
them feel
strongly.
important. It makes
Yeah,
them feel
and so
important.
absolutely. And so now they're going like, "Oh, this guy really wants my advice." But the thing is, just think of all the guys you served with who got
Yeah.
out. If you're not reaching out to every one of those people, whether they were your CO, your XO, your first sergeant, they're now in somewhere in the United States in industry, maybe not, but everybody, all these people, people at church, people in the gym, if they don't know that you're looking for work, that's your fault.
Yep.
That's your
And
fault.
to your point, I kind of disagree with what you said about LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn can get you a job, but I think the approach that they're teaching in TAPS is wrong. I think the best way is, like you said, use that keyword, right? Like find people on LinkedIn because everybody's industry is
Yep.
underneath their name, and start reaching out to those people. It's how I built the personal brand on LinkedIn for this. Is anybody who would engage with my posts or anybody that I thought was valuable to me, I'd send them a 1-minute Loon video. Hey,
Yep.
thanks for welcoming me into your network. Happy to have you as a part of mine. If there's ever anything I can do to help you, please, let me know. If it was somebody that I wanted advice from, I would flat out say, like, I came across your profile. You're doing some interesting things. I would love to get 30 minutes of your time to get your advice on what direction I should go. It has probably been the best decision I've ever made. And so, in my opinion, that's one of the best ways because LinkedIn gives you reach, not
Oh
just
no,
across
absolutely.
the country, but worldwide, right?
I'm on LinkedIn more than an hour a day. So it's not that I don't like LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn's great. But the thing is, if people think they're going to go on LinkedIn and go to their jobs thing, and
Jobs, yeah, no.
and they're just going to start sending out resumes, it's no different if you're on Indeed, right?
Yeah,
Nobody. The reason somebody's going to hire you is because they know you, and
yeah,
I don't mean like personally. They've known you since you were a child. I'm talking about because they've known you through whatever. And by the way, you hit a nail on the head there. When individuals are on LinkedIn, you can now you found what industry you want to be in. Now you're going to find the top 25 companies in that industry, right? Well, you can go to LinkedIn and you can type in, let's say it's oil and gas, right? You can type in Exxon, right? And then you can type in plus Army, and and anybody that has Exxon and U.S.
Army.
Army in their profile, it pops up. Well, now you can pick and choose who it is at the place that you would like to connect with. And you go ahead and connect with them, and there's a great chance that they're going to accept your connection request. The next thing is, don't immediately message them and say, "I need a job."
Yeah, don't do that. That's
Don't do that.
not a good idea.
That's not what it's saying. It's to build up a kind of this is the long game, right? This is not something that's immediate. You're going to build a relationship up with them probably over, I'd say a 90-day period. And then finally, it depends upon where they live. You're going to either invite them for a cup of coffee or invite them to a Teams chat, just that you can talk to them for 5 minutes. Say, hey, I'd love 5 minutes of your time. I need your advice. I'm trying to get in this industry. And I would, if you were me, how would you go about it?
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not saying, hey, I need a job. The guy's going, oh, here's another one. Right. Here's another guy begging me for a job. That's not what you're doing is you're begging him for his advice
Yep.
to help you be able to use his knowledge to get where, and then finally, now after 90 days, that individual is going to say, you ought to do this, this, and this, and by the way, hey, maybe you ought to make a connection with Harry Smith and tell him I told you to call him,
Yep.
right? And so that's a very subtle way that it happened, where he's the one who's making that suggestion, not you.
And I promise you it works, because I get them
Absolutely.
every single day. And I get it. Like, people are, well, but Adam, you've got almost 12,000 on LinkedIn. Yeah, I built that from 90, right? So
Right. Yeah,
so
right.
I do understand how this game works, but I get them every day almost. Somebody will like, hey, I've got this thing. Are you interested in this position? We think you'd be a great fit. And it's like, well, you don't know anything about me, because I'm never going back to corporate America. Like,
Right. Yeah.
thanks for the offer, but then it's what we're talking about is, I think networking is the wrong word. I think relationship building is a way better way of putting that.
Yep.
And the reason I think that is because you really get to create so much opportunity for yourself when you really don't have an agenda other than trying to build relationships with people. And so, from this podcast to the meetings with other veterans who reach out to me just wanting advice, transition advice from me, I always go into those calls or those recordings with the idea that I want to build a relationship with John, because John is somebody that I wish that I would have known was around when I got out 10 years ago, particularly with the direction I'm headed now, because you could have shortcutted some stuff for me, right? And so I think it's really important to understand kind of the motive behind what you're doing. If you're just trying to get a job because you're desperate, you're going to have shitty luck. I'm sorry, because it's like when I was in the insurance industry, and I was on the scummy side of insurance, which is even harder. But when you're in a role where you have to eat what you kill, and you're doing it from a place of desperation, you never sell anything. When you let go of that and you're just like, fuck it, I'm just going to go in here and see what happens, I would make more sales hands down than ever when I was like, I got to fucking eat today, so I have to make this sale.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I love that you're pointing that out. And moving forward, like, where the hell were you? Why didn't I know about you 10 years ago when I got out? Because you've been doing Skillstorm for 11 years, and it's really interesting.
I'm in my 5th year with Skillstorm.
Okay.
I was with a different firm doing kind of almost the same thing, but their concentration on veterans and their training was different. But it was in the IT field. It was the veterans program. But the thing is that, you're right. So I got into the veteran space in 2015. So I'm in my 11th year, just starting my 11th year of being in it. And, the thing is, like when I talk to individuals about Skillstorm, I tell them, I said, look, I'm going to be very transparent with you, just like I'm being with you right now. And because I tell people every week, you can't do this. The financial calculus does not work for you. Right. Skillstorm is more, I want to say, just a step above entry level. And so, if you're a staff NCO and you've got 3 kids, and they're all in middle school, and you're saving for college, and you've got a mortgage and 2 car payments, and I'm going like, man, you cannot there's taking a step back, and then there's just being absolutely silly about it. Right. And, because you obviously, you've got to worry about more than you. I always say that the perfect person to come to Skillstorm is, somebody that's really, dying to be in the IT field. They're really passionate about it, and everything they own can fit in 5 sea bags.
Yeah.
And so, and they're, and I'm not being a wise ass either. And they're, because that way, after we finish training them, and they end up going to a Fortune 100 company, one of our clients, and they throw everything they own in their Toyota Corolla, and our client needs them in San Antonio. They go, no problem, I'll go to San Antonio. Boosh, off they go. Whereas somebody else is, they've got, they've got a home, and they've got a wife, and they've got 3 kids, and they've got 2 car payments, and they've got a dog, and when you go through all of these things, and you're going like, dude, I said, this is a bridge too far. So I always say to people, even when I'm at job fair, I'll tell people this at Fort Eisenhower on Thursday. I said, I never want anybody's life worse after they come to Skillstorm than it was before.
Yeah.
And I said, the other thing is, I never want anybody turning around 4 months from now and pointing at me saying, John, you never told me that.
Right. Well,
And so that's why I'm probably, truthfully, probably too transparent. But you know what? I want everybody to make the right decision, because making the wrong decision is time and money.
yeah. Well, and to your point, the numbers don't work out. We've collected some data that shows, veterans getting out, we'll just use an E5 at 5 years, for example. They need to find a career that pays them the equivalent of $110,000 a year to make up their base salary and the benefits they're getting. So now you have this E5, like you said, 2 car payments, a mortgage, 3 kids. Skillstorm may not be for them. Your program, there are several other programs out there. IVMF, I've done this for their new Google cybersecurity program. My point is like, you started doing this in 2015. I got out in November 2015. 10 years later, almost, I'm now in the tech field with AI and an AI company. And I didn't know that about myself. I always looked at tech as like, man, I need to go get an advanced math degree. I'm never going to be able to learn how to code. It was all scary, right? And so, I think it's really interesting to see pretty much over the last year and a half, I would say, just from my perspective, tech has become this giant fucking thing. And like, there is so much opportunity in tech. There's so many programs out there for veterans specifically to get you into cybersecurity, networking, even AI. There are Vets to Industry is working on an AI program right now. And, there's all kinds of stuff coming up. So like, what is it about IT, cybersecurity, all of that stuff? What was it for you that like really led you to start doing the work in that field and trying to get veterans into that space? Did you just see where the economy was going?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it was two things. One, I was offered a position to run a veteran program, and it happened to be in IT.
Right.
So, I guess you could call it dumb luck. But once I was in it, I started understanding how all of industry, revolves around information technology.
Yeah.
As I say to, young soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, when I'm at a job fair, I go, look, I said, what happens if a police officer pulls you over? What's the first thing he does? Logs onto his laptop,
Yep.
right? You bring your car in for service. What's the first thing the mechanic does?
They hook it up to a computer.
Hook it up to a freaking computer, right? And so no matter where you're going, even something as mundane as that, right? It's all about information technology. I remember the company I worked for before Skillstorm. Goldman Sachs is this very prominent investment bank in New York City, and they've got, I think it's 34,000 employees. 11,000 are in IT.
A third.
A third of the firm is in IT. Now, granted, you have to understand that the banks are different. They have to be they need more redundancy than most industries, right? Because if their IT goes down, they've got billions of dollars at stake that are if they're on the wrong side of a trade, they got to be able to get out of that trade, and they can't blame IT for it, right? So, but that's why they need all that redundancy. That's why they need that many people in IT.
But we're seeing this all the way down to the trade jobs, the plumbers, the HVAC companies, right? Because the current landscape with technology, you can shortcut lead generation. You can do it on a massive scale with technology. Data security is a big thing now, right? So it's just it just keeps compounding, and it's such a rewarding field because for me, I get to learn something new every day, particularly because everything's always changing. It's never the same, and it's
I equate it to the medical field, Adam. Like medical field is always changing. People getting a hip replacement now, or a knee replacement, or a shoulder replacement. that's like somebody getting their appendix out 50 years ago.
Really, I just had hip
It's like a
surgery. I
simple
get it.
operation. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. You need a new shoulder here.
no big deal.
And
Yeah,
then, and not only that, but you walk out of the hospital the next morning.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so but IT is much like that, right? It, software today is obsolete that was brand new 6 years ago.
Mhm.
So it's, or almost obsolete.
And I
And
think
then
that
you add
plays
in,
well to us, right? That plays
right.
well to us as
Yeah.
just you look at you as an infantry officer, all the commanding that you did of troops, like everything is constant. You're always putting out some kind of fire. Something's always changing. You always got to be on your toes. It's never really the same thing day in and day out, minus the training and the tactics, right?
Yeah,
Like that
exactly.
always
Yeah.
stays the
Yeah, every
same.
day's different.
And IT is very much like that,
Yeah.
particularly like, I'm not in the cybersecurity side, I'm on the AI side, but as I've been trying to grow my AI company and really seeing the opportunity there are now three major companies out there that are charging like $25,000 to give you a certification to make you a chief AI officer. That is a new position at these Fortune 500 and 100 companies. Like it's telling you where everything's going in the future. And so there's so many unique opportunities, and it's never the same thing every day. You're never going to deal. I mean, you might deal with the same problem every now and again, but the scope of the problem is always going to look different. And I think we thrive in environments like that.
Well, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to give you an example, that software development is what is software development doing, right? It's solving problems,
Yes.
right?
It's why I love it so much.
And so in reality, that and you take somebody with some common sense and a decent IQ, and again, they have to like it, right?
Mhm.
But they might have an aptitude that they never thought they had,
Right.
right?
I didn't
And
think that I could ever learn Python or
right.
play with some of these. I'm big into AI and all of that, right? And so you've seen all these low and no code tools come out, and you can teach yourself in a day or two or three how to read code, and then you start falling down that rabbit hole because you like it, and then you find out senior software developers who have known how to code for 30 years are buying into these tools, and they're telling you, I prompt the tool more than I write lines of code. That should be your clue that this could be for you. If
Right.
you, like you said, if you have some kind of IQ and the ability to think critically.
Right. And at Skillstorm, that's one of the first things we do is like, if I'm at a job fair and somebody says, why do I, why IT, is what I tell them. And I, if they tell me, well, I've really been dabbling in it since I was in high school, and I taught myself to do a little bit of Python, et cetera. Now that's a great answer. But if somebody comes up to me and goes, well, it's better than walking an aisle at Lowe's, um, you know, that's not the answer I'm looking for. I'm looking
Right.
for somebody that's really passionate about being in the industry, right? But if they are, one of the first things I do, we have a free course on our website called Introduction to Coding. Right,
I love it.
it's a 90-hour course. They take it for free. It's self-paced, but I really suggest people take it because I think 70% of the people that are leaving active duty, they're transitioning into civilian life, have thought at least one time about IT as maybe an avenue they'd like to pursue. And so my point is, take our free 90-hour course. You're going to find out if you have an aptitude you never thought you had before. And then you're also going to find out if you don't have an aptitude for it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, even if you have an aptitude, do you like it? Even if you're good at it and you'd rather get a root canal than sit behind a keyboard, then then maybe this isn't for you. But if you here's a win-win. You have an aptitude for it, and you do like it, and you love problem solving, and you love learning new things. That might be a perfect avenue for you.
Yeah, because it'll make that 9 hours behind that keyboard seem like
It'll go
five
like that,
minutes.
sure.
Yeah,
And the thing
exactly.
is, too, is the IT industry. Why do people want to go into it? Be, Things are always changing. It's a growing industry. It's one of the biggest industries now in the United States. It also pays pretty good. And the other is that there's no heavy lifting. So it's,
Well, and you can look at this also from a side hustle perspective. So, maybe Skillstorm isn't for that person
right.
because, they need to make more income. So go take the Skillstorm free class, right?
Yeah,
And then, whatever career you're doing, have a little bit of discipline and sacrifice in the short term to come home from your job that you may hate or you may not, you may like it, and leverage that skill as a freelancer. You could do
yeah,
that or leverage
absolutely.
that skill to build your own, kind of business or like I'm doing or whatever. I'm all self-taught. I went to IVMF's EBV in Philly in March. Great program. One of the best things I've done in my life to date. And it gave me the confidence and the validation I needed to continue to pursue this stuff. And I'm just running with everything I learned there.
That's awesome.
But what I really learned is that like I can do this. Like I can do this, and nobody can stop me if this is the path that I want to go, and I'm actually good at it. And so it's. I mean, you can learn this stuff. You can create opportunity for yourself, and I think that's the lesson here, right? Like there's so many mediums out here now, particularly in IT, cybersecurity, AI, that you can leverage to create so many opportunities for
Right.
yourself.
I
It's
think that,
it's amazing.
and you've had an entrepreneurial mindset about it, which is why you're succeeding at it. The thing is that I think that one of the unfortunate things is I think a lot of people go like, oh, I'll go get some certifications or I'll go get a computer science degree, and they immediately think that's going to just explode into.
I'm
And
guilty of that myself, John.
yeah, and the here's the thing is, um, when your resume goes in front of a line manager, right, for IT, the first thing he's looking at is not your certifications, and it's not if you did go to school, where you went to school, right? Unless you went to MIT, maybe. Um, what he's looking for is your work experience. That's what he wants to know. What have you worked on? What have you used that I need you to use that you've done somewhere else other than here? And
Yeah,
so work is the um, work experience is the where the rubber meets the road. It
yep,
trumps everything. You go get 10 certifications, you can get um, a degree in computer science, a master's degree in computer science. If you got no work experience, you're going to have the same problem. And that's where Skillstorm comes in. Is we have our clients that we then not only do we train you, but then you end up going to work for them. But so that we're the bridge between that and learning and employment. Without employment, it's really it's fairy dust.
well, and I think too, you keep talking about, I mean, go get the certifications. I'm all for it. But what I've learned through that, EBV gave me access to Cisco's Python 1 and 2
Yep.
courses. Those courses, not a big fan of them. They're not super interactive. But I've seen a lot of these coding boot camps and other programs. You actually build real like
Oh yeah.
projects with these things. So what
Yep.
you need to do with those is take your projects, put them into a portfolio. Now you can leverage that as quote unquote work experience, right? Because you're giving them at least something to show
Right.
you've done this, right?
And
So
that's what I meant about being entrepreneurial in your thought process. Don't get the certifications and think that Google's going to hire you.
right,
You know
right,
what I mean? You're like, hey, they didn't answer my my job application. What's going on?
yeah,
And or Apple or whoever. There's you know no matter what industry, they need IT people. But the thing is the way you're going about it is fantastic because basically you're not taking no for an answer,
nope,
right? You're going like, okay, it made if a Fortune 100 company doesn't want me, I'm going to do this on my own. I'm going to freelance, and I'm going to make my own work experience resume
yep.
by things I've done for other firms, even on a small scale.
Yep.
You
Dude,
know,
and it works. It works
yeah,
so well. I built a couple of automations for some of my buddies that were a part of the community that I just shut down because nobody was using it in their e-commerce business.
right,
And it's like I get to show that as experience if I
sure,
was to ever go in, and I've disqualified myself from the corporate world. I don't want to go back to that, but I
yeah,
have things that I can show that I am an expert at this. And what's really cool is how I ended up with Allset Technologies is I had Tyler Nelson on this podcast, and then he joined my community. And then I started, in an effort to save time and money, I started falling into tech and AI and automation to learn how to, shortcut podcast production so I could put out more content. And I would share that with the community, like trying to show them that, like, you can pave your own way in this world. Tyler looked at it and was like, dude, I've been watching you for the last 9 months. I need you in my company. Will you come to my company for 33% equity as the CTO and help me grow this thing? And like, that's what I mean by creating opportunity for yourself and learning these skills. And you can build all of this work history for yourself if you're disciplined and you're motivated to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I just put my email up there in case anybody has any questions.
Yeah, brother. We're coming to the end of the show.
Direct.
So I want you to tell everybody how they can find you, how they can connect with you, how they can add you to their network of people that can point them in the right direction.
There's my name in the proper spelling right there. Make sure it's 2 L's, not just one. So it's Tansill at Skillstorm.com. I just put it in the chat. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to see that or not.
It'll be in the show notes.
But and then connect with me on LinkedIn.
I love it, brother.
Yeah. And like I said, I'm on LinkedIn at least an hour a day, because the majority of the people that I'm connected with are in the veteran space. And the other thing too is, when I'm doing job fairs like I will be this week at Fort Eisenhower, and I talking to somebody, he goes, well, I really don't want to do IT. I want to be a police officer. I want to be, I want to be in logistics or whatever. I literally take them by the hand and I bring them over to a table that's, they're a logistics company. And I go, hey, because I know all these people. I've been doing this for 11 years. And I say, hey, Frank, here's, Specialist Smith. He's interested in logistics, or staff, could be, Staff Sergeant Smith. But so it's not, I'm here to help as many veterans as I can find gainful employment so they can take care of themselves and their families. And that's the bottom line, really.
I love it, brother. I am so grateful you're out there doing this. There needs to be more of us willing to do this and just kind of be the example for, like, look, you can succeed in this. You don't have to make the same mistakes that you and I made going through our own transitions. And I really appreciate you being here, giving me an hour of your time to have this conversation today.
I appreciate it, Adam. I appreciate the invite, and good luck to you in your AI adventures.
I'm excited, man. Take care, everybody. John Tansill. We'll be back next week with another awesome episode. Take care. That's our show, and I'm truly thankful you've joined us at The Strategic Veteran. If our conversation today sparked curiosity, or if you're ready to elevate your game, I'm here to help. Visit thestrategicveteran.com for exclusive show notes and resources, or to book a coaching session directly with me. Take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and share your review. Your support makes all the difference. For more insights and daily strategies, let's connect on LinkedIn and keep the conversation going. Remember, this isn't just a podcast, it's your strategic advantage in action. Until our next rendezvous, stay bold and continue the mission.